In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you 4 very important aspects about nesting inside Premiere Pro. All right, starting off, we're going to be talking about editing non-destructively in Premiere Pro with nesting. You're also going to be able to drastically increase your editing speed with the proper nesting and multicam sequences. And you'll also be able to utilize nesting for cleaner color grades, graphics, VFX, and just an overall cleaner experience on your timeline. And I will show you a practical application for combining all of these for an actual edit. So before we jump into that, what is nesting inside Premiere Pro? Nesting inside Premiere Pro basically is where you take a group of clips, whether they're photo, video, or audio, and you combine them into a nested sequence. So they become its own sequence. Or another way to think of it is a folder. So nesting inside Premiere Pro refers to the process of grouping multiple clips or sequences into a single sequence. When you nest clips, you combine them into a nested sequence, allowing you to treat that group of clips as if they were a single clip on your timeline. This can drastically simplify complex sequences and improve timeline organization and make applying effects or transitions to multiple clips much easier. And I'll get to that in just a second. So in summary, the key benefits of nesting are easier effect application, simplifying the timeline, non-destructive editing, multi-camera editing. Keep those in mind as we will be exploring each of them later on. Okay, now that we have the groundwork for what a nest is inside of Premiere Pro, let's go ahead and dive into how and why you need to utilize nesting in Premiere Pro. So to start, to nest a clip, you simply select the clips on your timeline, right-click, and choose Nest from the menu. The most common thing nesting is used for is the speed and warp stabilizer effects. These are commonly used together for weddings, music videos, real estate videos, and much more. But you can't have both effects applied on the same clip. Stupid, right? I know. Apparently Adobe can't figure this one out. So the solution for this is you adjust your clip speed first, either with the rate stretch tool, or right-click your clip in the bin, select Modify, Interpret Footage. In the Frame Rate box, you will see it is currently selected for Use Frame Rate from File. All this means is that your footage has a frame rate of what your camera was set to at the time of filming. So in this example here, you can see that my frame rate for this particular clip is 29.9700 for the frame rate, which basically comes out to 30 frames per second. To slow down your footage here, select the Assume This Frame Rate and type in 23.976 for the frame rate. This will slow down your footage as much as possible without making it look weird or any kind of file degradation. Now, most professionals shoot either 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second and slow down their footage according to their needs. Okay, another benefit of the nesting is smart editing. So think of this example. You put your clip onto the timeline and you begin to do some color adjustments and you put some VFX and stuff on there. Perfect, right? Then you go ahead and you start slicing up that clip, but later on in your edit, you decide that I need to go back and change the color. Well, you've already gone through and made 50 different cuts to that one clip that had all the effects applied to it in the first place. So now all your different cuts have the same effects that you applied in the first place. But if you want to go back and change it, you can't really do that easily because you have to change each value of the effects applied individually. One thing that you could do is you could delete all the attributes for each of those clips and then make your adjustments on one clip, copy the attributes, and then paste it onto all. It's definitely a pain in the butt, and you could definitely do that if that's how you ended up editing. However, I definitely recommend just trying to avoid that entirely, and that's why we're going to be using nesting. So smart editing is basically taking your clips and nesting them together. So you'll add all your color grading and your VFX inside the nest. So let me show you how that works. Okay, so as you can see here, I have my Premiere Pro timeline all pulled up. I don't have anything on the timeline yet, but I have all my raw files imported into my bins. So the very first step is we're going to import all of our raw clips onto our timeline. And we're going to be stacking them based on track. And to give you an idea of what we have our front camera, our top detail, our top wide, and our side camera, and we have our main audio. As you're bringing these clips into your timeline, you're going to want to stack them based on the specific take that these clips were taken in, and also make sure that you're keeping each take separate. Let me show you what I mean. As you can see here, I have 2 different clips, and this is a tutorial. So we filmed for about 25 minutes for the first take, and then the second take was about 11 minutes. So what we're going to do is, based on what we need for this particular edit, I'm just going to drag these in. The most important thing is that you make sure that each take is lined up correctly. Okay, and the last step is we're going to be dragging in our main audio. This is lav mic audio. And I have that at the bottom. Okay, next step, audio synchronization. So as you can see here, we have our 4 cameras and our main audio. and we have the first section of filming and our second section of filming. I just call these columned. So basically stacking your columned raw shots, basically. So your next step for synchronization is you're just gonna select all of your columned clips, right click, and you go up to synchronization, and you're gonna want audio track channel 1. An important note, what that actually means is this is track 1 for your audio right here. And so this is what Premiere is going to be basing your audio off of to sync everything together. And done, just like that. And on to the second one. Perfect, and there we go. We have our 2 takes for this tutorial, and everything has been stacked correctly and synchronized. On to the next step. Okay, so the next step, and this is very important, so pay attention. The very next step is nesting all these particular pieces together, and I'll explain why. So we have our front camera, our top detail, our top wide, and our side cam. Each of these are going to require their own color grade and their own VFX. So what's going to be important here is we select all of the front camera first, and we go to Nest, and we'll give that a name of Front. We'll do the same thing for our top detail. And our top wide. And of course, we also have our side shot. Okay, and very last thing is we're gonna nest our audio too. Done. Okay, so our tutorial is raw, not cut. Everything's nested. Now, the very next step that you need to do is save. No, just kidding. You definitely want to do that. But your next step is you want to jump into your actual sequences, your nested sequences here. And there's a very important step that you need to complete. As you can see, we still need to add VFX and do all that stuff, but our clips are kind of like all over the place based on where they were at on the main timeline. So how do we fix that? What does that look like? You definitely do not want to start coming in here and just clicking and dragging and being, just kind of guessing at where things should go, because you're going to mess up the entire timeline and then you're just not going to be very happy. Okay, so what do you got to do? So what I do is if I have more than one clip, I select everything, I click and hold Shift, and I drag everything down just like this. Okay? Once the video clip and the audio clip are on track 1, I lock it. That way I don't accidentally touch anything and move anything. And we'll go ahead and do that for all of our nested sequences. Now for the top wide, we're not actually going to lock this one right away because the shot is upside down. So what we're going to do is we're going to select our clip. We're going to go over to our FX control panel. We're going to go to rotation, and I already know this is going to be a 180 rotation. Do the same exact thing. Boom, done. Hit save and lock our clips. And finally, we want to go to our side. This one is already going to be on both track 1 for video and audio, and there's nothing I need to adjust on this clip, so I'm just going to lock everything. Okay, jumping back to our main timeline. As you can see up here, we actually have all of our main nests open, so we can quickly jump back and forth between all those. Our very next step is going to be organization of your bins. Here are all of your different nested sequences, and I cannot stand having just a cluttered bin bucket. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to select our first nest, and we're going to go down to our last nest, Shift, click and drag into a bin. I just call it nests. That way everything is in here. Our next step is inside of our raw bin. We obviously have all of our raw content. What we're going to do is go down to the new item, and we're going to select adjustment layer. And your adjustment layer is already going to have the right size, the right frame rate. Hit OK. Next, we'll go ahead and call this all color. Now, the cool thing about an adjustment layer inside of Premiere is if you're just pulling it out of your main bucket area and you're applying it on a timeline, it doesn't retain any of the values that you place on it inside the timeline, unless you're duplicating it from the timeline. So what that means is we do not have to create an adjustment layer for each of these different camera angles, which is amazing. So we're gonna go to the front, we're gonna grab our color, and just because I know how this timeline is gonna work out, I'm gonna have a VFX layer underneath my color layer, and I'm just gonna be able to go through and clean up some of the background and make it more presentable. And for that reason, I already know that that VFX layer is going to be my second layer on track 2, and all color adjustment layer is gonna be on track 3. All right, and then we're gonna do the same thing for top detail, top wide, and our side shot. Okay, hit save. Now going back to what I had mentioned earlier, this allows us to work non-destructively, cleanly, and again, I can make any adjustment that I want inside of my Lumetri color panel, right? So let's say, boom, this is the edit I want. Looks fantastic. Well, later on, I'm on a monitor that is actually properly calibrated. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not correct, or whatever the case is, right? You need to make some adjustments. Well, if you've already gone through on your main timeline and you've already cut all this up, you have to go through again and you have to make all those adjustments individually, which is a pain in the butt and takes a lot of time and makes you want to throw your computer away. So instead of doing that, making all of your adjustments inside of your nested sequence is going to save you a ton of time. Okay, let's go ahead and review what we can do to kind of clean up our timeline a little bit. All of our main nested video clips, we don't actually have to color label at all unless we really want to, just to kind of help have a little bit of separation. It doesn't really matter because we're gonna be turning this into a multicam sequence. But for me personally, I don't really like this color. So I'm just gonna go to label and I'm gonna change my main audio to more of a muted tone. It's a little bit easier to see from on my monitor, all the levels. Hit save. Okay, let's talk about audio. So you've nested your main audio, just like you did with your video clips, and you've named it according to your workflow. And in this case, it's main audio. But now you're ready to actually edit this audio inside of Audition. So you might be tempted to just go ahead and right-click on this clip and go right on up to, oh, can't edit your clip on Audition? What the hell? Well, I guess it's off to Google and trying to figure out why you can't do it, and there's no helpful information. Well, don't worry, I got you. Turns out you actually can't edit a nested audio clip inside of Audition. And you're like, well, wait a minute, you just told me to nest this whole thing inside of Audition and now I can't edit it? That's kind of dumb. Well, hold on. The reason why is because it's the same concept as if you were going to put all of your clips on the timeline, do all of your adjustments, and then go ahead and cut, right? And then later on, you're like, oh crap, I gotta go back and I gotta make those adjustments. So it's the same concept. So what you're gonna do is actually just double click. You're gonna jump back into your main audio sequence, the nested sequence that you made. And from here, you'll be able to edit your audio inside of Audition. Although it's still grayed out because I haven't updated Audition to the 2025 version, and I'm currently editing on the 2025 version for Premiere. So there's obviously that's not gonna work. It's not gonna connect. But if all of your software is updated to the correct versions, then this is gonna be an option for you. Now you open up your audio clips inside of Audition and you make your edits, all that stuff. Well, later on, you're like, man, I'm just not happy with the way this turned out. And you've already edited it, you saved it. Now what? You're kind of left in a bad spot. So here's what you're gonna do. Inside of here, again, let's just go ahead and select, shift click, drag everything up to the first track. So keep it clean. And what we're gonna do is just duplicate. Just like that. It is Alt click drag on a PC and Option click drag on a Mac. So once you have your duplicated clip, you can always go ahead and run in here and change what that looks like, just so it's easy to distinguish what that is. You can also mute and lock that clip. This allows you to have full flexibility, so that way when you go in and edit these clips inside of Audition and you need to make some adjustments or have just a base raw layer for you to go back to and make new adjustments to, you have that option. You have that flexibility. Again, it's all about non-destructive editing and being able to speed up your workflow. So as I was editing this tutorial, I needed to make a few adjustments to the actual timeline sequence. And for whatever reason, that got rid of my audio previews. So nesting inside Premiere Pro refers to the process of grouping multiple clips or sequences. And so we've already nested everything on the main timeline. And as you can see here, you cannot see any of the waveforms. And when you click into the actual audio nest, you can still see that the waveforms are there. So that part is working, but for whatever reason on the main timeline, you can't see the waveforms. So what do you do about that? Well, it's actually pretty simple. All you got to do is make sure that your timeline is selected, go up to sequence and render audio. And all that's doing is it's building a preview of your waveforms. And it's going to do that for your entire timeline. And done, just like that. Problem solved, and you're ready to edit. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about multicam nesting. Once you've nested all the individual camera angles, select all the nests you've created. So the front, top detail, top wide, side, just the cameras. We're gonna go ahead and right click and choose nest. And for this, we're gonna go ahead and call this the multicam nest. Boom, there it is. So here's your multicam nest, but we're not technically done yet because this is not a multicam. All we've done is taken all of our nests and nested the nests. So it's kind of like the movie Inception, you know, which is like you have a dream within a dream. Well, nest within a nest within a nest. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead and nested all of our initial nests, we're gonna go ahead and right click on our new multicam nest, and we're gonna go to multi-camera, enable. Now you can see on my timeline that the nest actually doesn't say multicam nest anymore. It actually says side camera. Well, what the hell just happened? Well, we've turned it into a multicam sequence. And so what the multicam does is it actually pulls from track 1. What's on track 1? The nest for the side cameras on track 1. So that's what's displaying here. Well, now the question is, how do we actually toggle on the option to see all 4 cameras inside of your nest? That's going to be inside of toggle multicam view or shift 0. So we'll turn that on, and you can see here we have our multicam sequence and our actual shot. Now, if you don't see this below your main display, go over here to the plus icon and find out where that's living at inside of your layout dialog box, and just go ahead and click and drag it onto the option bar below. Okay, so now that we have our initial video clips nested and those nests nested inside of a multicam nest, we have our multicam view toggled on. Let's go ahead and review how to really use the multicam. The multicam is going to be displaying what's on track 1 initially, but you can see that there is a yellow highlight around the track 1 clip. So as I click around here, you can actually see that I'm changing what this main clip displays. And as I do that, it also changes the title of the clip name. So let's go to the beginning. Let's find the beginning of our video. That happens to be right here. So I'm going to toggle on our razor tool, and I'm going to shift click at the playhead. And that's actually going to cut all the excess off in the beginning that I don't need. So we'll get rid of that because that doesn't really matter. Now, before we move any further, I want to make one thing very, very clear. And this is going to save you a ton of headache when you're working with nests. So this applies to your video clips, your audio clips, your graphics, and pictures. Okay, so to properly demonstrate what I'm talking about here, I have some effects and I also have an image. So as you work with nests, you may find that trimming the video clips and images exactly how you want on the timeline and then nesting them will cause you an issue later on down the road if you decide that you need to extend that nest by a few additional seconds or a few frames, or better yet, you're trying to apply a fade effect in between the nest and another clip, or it could be another nest. And it gives you this warning, transition, insufficient media. This transition will contain repeated frames. So what is that actually telling us? What that's saying is that these 2 clips that we have here on our timeline, there's an image on the inside, right? We know that those images we can extend as much as we want. But because we've nested it, we've essentially given it a hard cut. There's no more room on either end of these, on the ends of the nest. And that's indicated here with the white caps. So what it's saying is if we want to blend these together, it's going to have to make up frames in the middle of our fade. So okay? And that's what these grayed out, the striped dissolve is it's saying it's basically making up frames. Now, because of the picture in a picture, just for a quick example, you're not going to really see much in this, but if it was a video clip, you would definitely see the difference. So for video, you don't want to trim or start cutting your footage until you nest the video clips like we did in the beginning. That way you have all the raw footage for you to work with and you're not limiting yourself to whatever you place inside the nest after you cut. Because if you need to extend that at all for whatever reason, you can extend it to the right but you will not be able to easily extend it to the left because you would have to adjust everything inside the nest, and that defeats the whole purpose of having the nest in the first place. Now, for images and graphics, my recommendation is just to overestimate what you think you might need. So for instance, let's go back to where our images were not nested. So say for instance, we're going to go ahead and get this image here, and we're going to go ahead and get our main graphics kind of all lined up here. These can be slid over just a tiny bit more. So everything's lined up perfectly. And we'll get a new image, so it makes a little bit more sense. Let's grab this ruler. Okay, so for the purpose of this example, we're going to overestimate what we think we're going to need for the photo. Now, as you're actually editing these timelines, you're not going to be nesting anything on the front unless it's like it needs to be nested for whatever reason. The basic edit is you're just going to be adding your images like normal, boom, 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 and you'll be doing your fades, your keyframe animations, and so on. But for this example, say for instance, we need to nest this image, but if we nest this image, again, this is going to put a cap on our photo. So if we decide to blend that together, notice how it doesn't give us a warning this time, but instead the fade is actually on the left-hand side of our nested image. And it's not even close, it's not even on our front clip. So what does that actually mean? Well, what that means is that it is pulling extra frames from our front nest and using that to make up for the content that doesn't exist inside of our nest here to make this cross dissolve work. And to demonstrate that one more time, if I go ahead and nest my video clip, notice they both have the white cap on there, and I effectively have cut off any information from my footage to the left and any information from my image to the right. So if I go ahead and add my transition, again, we're gonna get that warning, hit OK. And now it's gonna be trying to make up frames in the middle. And so see, it'll be like paused. See how it's paused? The video doesn't actually move at all. That's because there's no information there until we get into the video sequence. So what's my point? My point is when you import your clips, all of your raw clips, you want to be able to nest everything first before you start cutting. That way you have all the raw information for you to work with. And same thing with your photography. I know that I'm going to need my footage I know that I'm going to need my picture to fade all the way to the end right in here. Somewhere in here, it's going to stop the transition. So I might as well give myself a little bit of extra room there. And I know for a fact that I'm going to need a little extra right here. So I'm going to go ahead and nest my picture. And now, again, you can see where it cuts off here, but the white caps. I'm going to go ahead and trim my nest back to where I wanted it in the first place. Go ahead and apply my default transition, boom. And it works perfectly, just like a regular clip that's not nested. Okay, let's talk about editing with a multicam sequence. So as you can see, this is our actual viewfinder of what we're looking at, what's being displayed, what would be rendered out. And over here on the left-hand side, we have all 4 cameras that we can toggle through. And so what this looks like is, we'll start off at the beginning.
Hi everyone, it's Tammy with Shabby Fabrics. Today, I am here to show you a really fun quilt for Christmas. This is called Work.
And so as we go through and we're like, okay, we want to cut to a detail shot or whatever this is she's talking about. So say for instance, I want to cut to my top wide. What I'm going to have to do is get my razor tool, make a slice, and see it still says front and front. But now that I'm on this new section, all I got to do is click the camera that I want to show next.
Christmas wreath quilt. I love how it has all the bows.
And same thing. So we can make multiple cuts here. We'll just assume that I know that these are the cuts that I want to make. So we start off with the front cam, we cut to our top wide, we can then cut to our top detail, and then we can cut to our side shot. And that is going to drastically speed up your editing workflow. Now, the best thing is, again, this is a non-destructive edit. So I can go through, I can make all the different cuts that I want. I can even If like, say for instance, this part right here, it's a dead spot, it's not important for the video, boom. So I can go through, make all my main edits on this timeline, and then as I decide and I go through and be like, you know what, I just don't really like where this top wide is at. I can always go back into the top wide sequence and make those adjustments inside of the original nest that we made. Okay, and those are the tips and techniques that I've learned over the last few years on how to effectively edit inside Premiere Pro with nesting and all the benefits that it has, how to work non-destructively. Hopefully this tutorial helps you with understanding the basics of how to edit effectively in Premiere Pro using nesting. And if you have any questions, please let me know.